Hello, all you writers out there. Welcome to our virtual write-in. I am so excited that you all are here today with me to join me in having a very fun time together for NaNoWriMo. So before we get started with our virtual write-in, I want to give you all a couple minutes to get settled. So make sure you grab some delicious beverage. Make sure you have everything you need to write with, your computer, your pen, whatever you need. And we will start in about 2 minutes. So go ahead and just grab some stuff, and I will be back in about 2 minutes, and we will get started with the virtual write-in. If you're coming into this completely new and you don't know what's happening, no problem at all. We've been doing National Novel Writing Month all month here at Barkman, and we have been having videos each Monday from 2 to 3. So if you don't know what NaNoWriMo is, or you want to know what we were talking about previous to our virtual write-in, feel free to go back into our YouTube or our Facebook page, and you can see our other videos from the previous weeks. One other thing I want to mention too, don't forget next week, November 30th, the same time from 2 to 3 p.m., we are going to have Pueblo author Allison Gervais come and visit us. So I'm so excited for her to visit us and for us to have a chat together and learn so many things from her. So I'll give you all a couple more moments, and we will go ahead and get started with the write-in. All right, if you're still grabbing things, no problem. I'm going to chat a little bit before we get started, but do go ahead and get settled in when you can. So first of all, welcome to our first ever virtual write-in. I am so excited to be with you all today. And while you're here today, feel free at any time to put things into the comments. We'll have some areas where we will be discussing some things, thinking about how NaNoWriMo has gone for us, different successes and challenges we encountered. And at that time, you can feel free to put things into the comments. But at any time, even if you're not watching this live, feel free to put anything into the comments. Introduce yourself, tell us how your word count is going, what NaNoWriMo project you're working on, and all of that fun stuff. So I want to make sure this is a very comfortable environment where we can all chat together as we write together as well. Let's see. Let me make sure I don't forget anything. Okay, so here's how the virtual write-in is going to go. We're going to be doing word sprints, and we're going to break that up with some discussion and then also some mindfulness technique I want to share with you all as well. So we will be doing word sprints, and that is going to be a big chunk of the time today because you need to write for a virtual write-in, right? Write-in, right? So many writings. But also, I want to make sure that we don't get too overwhelmed. So it's always important when you do word sprints or you're writing a lot for a very short amount of time that you take breaks in between. And so when we take breaks, that'll be when there's some time that's open for discussion and we can chat about things. And then also we will talk about a mindfulness technique as well. So before we get started, one more thing. We have one more kit to go. It's sitting right here. It is an apple cider kit. So if you haven't heard about these kits to go have wonderful materials for writers to get started. There's lists of prompts for adults, teenagers, and kids, so all ages could use this. There's also a nice tumbler. You'll get a NaNoWriMo branded pin that I'm wearing here. And it says imagination activated. So that's pretty cool. And there's a couple other things in there for you as well. And you get to take the nice backpack too. So if you are interested in coming by and getting this, we are at curbside only service right now. But you can go ahead and give us a call, 719-562-5680, or you can go ahead and schedule a curbside pickup on our website, pueblolibrary.org. If you do that, just let us know that you want that NaNoWriMo kit and we will get that out to you. So we will have this kit until it lasts forever, however long it lasts, or until the end of November. So if you haven't gotten a kit already, now is your chance to grab one before this last one is gone. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We are going to get started with our first word sprint. So with each word sprint, I decided to include a prompt. Now this prompt is optional. If it doesn't really speak to you or you don't think it'll work well in your project, feel free to ignore this and just do your own word sprint. But I included this prompt because of our previous discussion where we talked about the fact that some people like word sprints better or feel like they work better for them if they have a prompt that's associated with it. So if you're someone that needs a little bit more direction and guidance with your writing and with doing word sprints, feel free to use this prompt. So our first one is, and we'll have different prompts for each word sprint. So our first one is describe an environment or landscape in great detail. Make your reader feel like they are right there with your characters. So if that speaks to you, please feel free to use that for this first word sprint. This first word sprint is going to be 5 minutes. And if you've never done a word sprint before, we talked about it quite a bit in the week 2 video if you want to go back to that, but I'll briefly explain here as well. So a word sprint is a tool that writers use so that we can get a lot of words done in a shorter amount of time versus dragging things out and having a hard time with word count and sitting at the computer for hours and hours without getting much writing done. And we chatted about how some people really like word sprints and some people really don't. I think word sprints are a good tool to use in a write-in like this, especially where it's virtual, because we can't really write together and like physically see each other. So this might be the easiest writing exercise that we can do together, which is why we're focusing on it here. The idea behind word sprints is that you write for the entire time. So this first one is 5 minutes. So that means for the 5 minutes, and I'll have a timer on the screen for you. That means for those 5 minutes, make sure you are writing. So make sure you continue typing. If you're using voice recognition, you keep talking. If you're using pen and paper, make sure you just keep writing. So the whole idea behind it is just to keep writing for those 5 minutes no matter what. And again, if you want to use that prompt, go for it. If you don't and you just want to keep working on your project and pick off where you left off, that is completely fine as well. Before we get started, any questions on doing our first word sprint? And again, at any time, feel free to put anything into the comments, introduce yourself, talk about anything, and ask any questions, and I'll be happy to address those when I see them. All right, if there's no questions, let's go ahead. We have our 5-minute timer on the screen. I'm going to remove my video just because I'm going to be writing over here. So I don't want you to hear loud clicking or anything like that. I'm going to be writing on a separate laptop. So let me go ahead and remove myself and I will start the timer and see you all in 5 minutes. All right, so go ahead and stop your word sprint. We are done with 5 minutes. All right, and let's see. I am going to see how much I got. It's not a competition at all, so don't feel bad if you have more or less of a word count after that 5 minutes. I just always like seeing how much I was able to accomplish in 5 minutes. So I got 267 words done, which is actually not as good as some of my previous word sprints. So it's good to know where I'm at today. Does anyone else want to put how many words they just got in that 5-minute word sprint? And let's go back. Did anyone write on the prompt? I did not, so I'd be interested to hear how you all liked that prompt. All right, feel free to put it in the chat at any time, even later on, if you use the prompt and how you felt like that first word sprint went. So let us move on to a little bit of a discussion portion. I'm just going to set a timer for this as well. I just don't want us to go over so we can fit all our word sprints in. So let's talk a little bit. Now, this is kind of in past tense, like how did NaNoWriMo go for you? Obviously, we're still in NaNoWriMo. We're in the 3rd week of it, but I am still curious to hear how things have been going for you. I guess technically we are in the 4th week. We're in the 4th week of it, not the 3rd week. That was last week. So we are technically in the last week, and we have 1 day next week of it. So how has it been going for you all? Any kind of thoughts or experiences that you have, please put them in the comments. And here are just some guiding questions that I thought about. So what have we learned through this experience? How are you going to reward yourself? And what is next after NaNoWriMo? That last one especially, we did chat a bit about that in week 3, talking about how we're going to use NaNoWriMo as a tool to start our writing journey or continue our writing journey on. So not that NaNoWriMo is separate from the rest of our months and experiences with writing throughout the year. Instead, how is it going to be a tool to bridge from writing every single day in November and having such a huge word count goal and a lot of intense writing focus? How are we going to transfer that to our writing journey in general? So I can start, and again, at any time, feel free to pop in your comments if you would like to discuss what we're talking about right now. If not, feel free to let this be a break for your brain before our next word sprint. We can also do that. So I will say that this NaNoWriMo was probably one of the more difficult ones that I have done. So I started out by thinking it was going to be like the other ones I'd done. I'll do 50,000 words. I'm doing a new genre. I'm doing all this programming. It's all going to be great and easy. It's never easy, but I had the idea of, it's going to be great. It's going to work out. And I found through a couple things, first off, just time commitment. I just had less time to commit to it this year. And then a couple other things, just 2020 and everything happening with that has been really difficult for, everyone's mental health, everyone's creativity. So I think that affected me as well. And then the last thing was my genre. So I had changed from doing longer novels in NaNoWriMo, especially one novel that I had worked on multiple years. And I switched from that to doing a genre of short story collection instead. Now, I don't regret that decision at all. I think that was still the right thing to do. However, I realized halfway through that I had to approach this NaNoWriMo very differently because of that genre change. So some of the things with that were realizing that I needed to change my word count from 50,000 to 30,000. And so I've done that now. I still feel a little grumbly about that because I really like doing the full 50,000, but I just needed to be kind to myself and realize that this NaNoWriMo was going to be a different experience overall for me. So I changed my word count to 30,000. And then the other thing that I found is with previous NaNoWriMos, I felt like working on one big novel was sometimes very, very overwhelming because it was just one thing that I continued to work on. And what was nice with this genre is that I got a lot of variation. So if I thought, no, I don't want to write that idea, or I don't want to work with this character, I'll go over here instead. And I had an option to go over instead and do something else. The downside to that, being able to hop back and forth between short stories, is that I had a really hard time finishing any of the short stories. So I get to that kind of middle bit that I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about, and I just feel like this is getting a little too difficult, a little crunchy. My brain's hurting, and I would switch over and start the beginning or start the end of another short story and write from the end to the beginning. And so what I found is I was having a really hard time finishing any of my short stories because I had the ability to bounce back and forth whenever I wanted. So that was a bit of a downside. Another downside was I feel like I didn't get to know my characters as well this NaNoWriMo. The last two with my novel, I felt like I really understood my main character and my secondary main character extremely well, especially by the second NaNoWriMo. By the end of that one, I felt very, very confident in my character and who she was and her journey and everything like that. And I think that I'm still learning the characters that I'm writing right now. They come up in a variety of different short stories, so it's not like different characters for every single short story, but there is a variety of characters overall, and I just haven't spent as much time with them yet. And when I don't know my characters yet, I find sometimes it's a bit hard to know what their intentions are or how they would react to things. And so that was a little bit of a stumbling block for me as well. As far as what I'm going to do next, I am really glad that I tried a genre difference because I need to spend some time reflecting on the two NaNoWriMo experiences I've had and what I want to do for next NaNoWriMo. Do I want to try this genre change again, or do I want to go back to that initial novel I've worked on for two other nanos and work on that one further in more of a editing manner, because I would be editing the majority of it. So I still really need to reflect on what I'm going to do for next NaNoWriMo. But I know for now what is next after NaNoWriMo before the next NaNoWriMo. That's a bit confusing. Before NaNoWriMo 2021, which I still need to reflect on and think about. I do know that I really have enjoyed, even though it's been a bit more difficult for me this year, the times that I am writing feels like a respite from everything else happening in 2020, and I really do enjoy the activity of writing. Of course, I already knew that since, I've written before and I'm drawn to writing as an art form, but it's just nice to remember that it really is a very relaxing, fun, fulfilling activity for me. And so what I'm going to focus on, especially probably in the month of December, I'm going to take a break in the month of December, but starting in January, I'm going to start making a more, not necessarily intensive, but a more consistent writing schedule for myself. So before, I always felt like I have NaNoWriMo coming up, so I can just focus on that when it's November and just write as I want throughout the year. But instead, I'm going to use NaNoWriMo more often with those word trackers, and I'm going to do word count goals for myself every month. And so it's not necessarily super intensive like NaNoWriMo, but I either want to do word counts that I want to hit each month, or how many days a week. So I want to write at least 2 hours every week, or at least 4 hours every week. And so that way it's less than NaNoWriMo, so it's more sustainable for my schedule and for my life. But that way I'm still getting to write more consistently, and work on my writing journey that way as well. How I'm going to reward myself is a great question. I put the question in and I seem surprised by it. I'm not really sure yet, so I'd be really interested to hear what you all are going to do for a reward. I think it's really important to celebrate NaNoWriMo, even if you don't hit your word count or hit the traditional 50,000 words. I think it's so important that you celebrate that you tried this out and that you took this huge step in participating. So let me know what you all are going to do in the comments, and maybe that'll help trigger something in my brain of something I'd like to do. Right now, for the most part, cuddling with my cat sounds amazing, and just having some of that restful period. So that may be what I end up doing for a reward. But before we go on to the next word sprint, if anyone else is interested in chatting with us about their experience, or what they think is going to happen next after this NaNoWriMo experience. Okay, That's okay if you're shy. We don't have to do it right now. If you feel comfortable later on, then please feel free to share, but no pressure at all. All right, so let's go into our second word sprint. And the second word sprint is also going to be 5 minutes. Something that I wanted to say earlier about the reward system. I did want to note that while I think it's really important to celebrate, even just trying NaNoWriMo, even if you didn't win and hit your word count, your reward doesn't have to be fancy or expensive or difficult or laborious to do. So even something as simple as taking a nap with your cat, going for a walk, calling your friend and celebrating over the phone that you did it, hanging out with your animals or your family and just having a nice, maybe at-home movie night, anything like that. So don't feel like, oh, well, I don't have the money to buy like a new laptop for my writing or those books that Hannah mentioned. That's not what I mean at all. I just mean something nice and enjoyable. So don't put pressure on yourself about rewards. Just choose something that you enjoy that's easy to do and easy to reward yourself with. All right. So yes, this next one is going to be another 5 minutes. And here's what this word sprint prompt is. So add a humorous scene into your work. Make your readers laugh out loud. How do you all feel about that one? I feel like I haven't seen very many prompts about humor. And even if you're not writing a humor piece of work, you can still put in some really hilarious scenes and oftentimes use humor to break tension, to help with character development, anything like that. So if that speaks to you and you want to throw a humorous scene into your work, that is what you can focus on for the next 5 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and get this timer started again and pull myself off screen so you can concentrate. All right, see you in another 5 minutes. All right, go ahead and stop that word sprint. That was 5 minutes. It goes by quick, doesn't it? I feel like it goes by really quickly. All right, so that was our second word sprint. We have two more of those, but let's go ahead and move into our mindfulness exercise. So I wanted to share this all with you because I thought this was really interesting, incorporating mindfulness into your writing practice specifically. The idea of mindfulness, meditation, being aware of your body and of your thoughts can be really helpful. And I've heard of it in like workplace settings, but I thought it'd be really interesting in creativity settings as well. And this is something a bit different, a different exercise beyond word sprints, and a bit different beyond anything else we've talked about throughout this program this month, throughout any of our weeks. So I wanted to share this all with you and try it out together as well. I have never done this before, so I figured we could all try together and learn together and see how it goes. Of course, any kind of focus on mindful practice can be a really great tool. So whether you do things like journaling, meditation, try to focus in the morning, focus on your breathing through a stressful situation, any of those things are really great practice. So it's always a great tool to use at any time. And I just wanted to use it specifically for writing in specific because I had never done that. So it can be a great tool overall just for daily life, but I wanted to see how it goes for us as writers. So this is what we're going to do. Let's think about a character in our work that we want to know or understand better. Could be your main character, side character, your anti-hero, your foil to another character, any character that you feel like you need to know and understand better. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some meditation. And while we're meditating, we're going to do the normal meditation where we breathe and we focus on our sensations, identify them, and let them pass. So the idea of, oh, I'm experiencing a cramp in my hand. That's okay. It's a feeling. And now I'll let it go without it distracting me. But beyond just that normal meditation that you may have done before, where it's focused on breathing and feeling your sensations, the next thing we're going to do after we start breathing and feeling is we are going to focus on that character. So we will bring that character into our view. So we will kind of imagine what they would look like physically and see if we can actually see them in our mind's eye. And once we get a clear picture of them in our mind's eye, we're going to try to focus on observing and understanding that character better. So think more on maybe their physical appearance, if that's what you are having difficulty with understanding, or you could also focus on what kind of mind does this character have? What motivations do they have? How would they react in this kind of situation? How are they feeling right now? That kind of thing. So as you're focusing on that character in your mind's eye, as we're meditating and breathing, focus on trying to observe that character better and focus on trying to understand them on that deeper level that you want to. So keep them as a visualization in your mind's eye, focus on the breathing, focus on identifying sensations, and continue to bring that character up and focus on them. This will take about 10-ish minutes. So we'll do the first 5 where we're just sitting. Make sure you're seated in a comfortable position, relaxed, focus on breathing. And then for the next 5, I'll kind of bring us out and say, okay, now we should talk about our character and we should start envisioning our character and getting to know them. So let's go ahead, and I've just put this on the screen because I really like the ocean. It's a very calming place. So sometimes if I can't be in the most calming place to meditate, I'll give myself an image of that calming place to start looking at and feel like I'm there. I'm going to pull myself off of this stream as well, and I will come back in 5 minutes. So for now, let's just start by focusing on breathing, feeling any sensations that come up, and getting into that meditative mindset. And as you continue to meditate, let's go ahead and start thinking about our character. So go ahead and bring them into your mind's eye. What do they look like? What are they wearing? And start imagining them in front of you, standing as if they're right in front of you while your eyes are closed. Continue to focus on your breathing as you start visualizing your character. All right, welcome back. How did you all feel about that? I thought that was really an interesting exercise, and it was a little bit shorter than 10 minutes just because I wanted to make sure to get everything in today. So I apologize we couldn't do the full 10. If you ever want to go ahead and try it out on your own again, maybe do it for longer and see what else you get. But I hope you all enjoyed that. I think I got some really interesting help from my character. She said a couple things that actually surprised me a bit. So that's really good to know. And I'm really grateful that that seemed to really help. That was an interesting way to think about my characters and kind of a different technique to use. So if you got any insights or any help from that meditation and mindfulness exercise, go ahead and write them down before you forget. And if you want to talk about how it went for you, if you liked it, if it did nothing, you hated it, your nose was itchy the whole time and nothing else happened, feel free to share any of that in the comments. But let's go ahead and continue on. We are going to do our third word sprint. So we have one that's 5 minutes and then one that's 10 minutes at the end. So I want to make sure to go quickly and hopefully we can get in both of those before 3. So the first thing, let's think about the Bechdel test. If you don't know what the Bechdel test is, that is where the Bechdel test is seen if there is a scene where 2 female characters talk about things other than a man. So it can be any other topic, but they cannot discuss a man. And there shouldn't be a man in this scene at all. So think about your work right now. Do you think it passes that Bechdel test? And if it doesn't, this could be a great prompt to focus on for this word sprint. So write a scene where 2 female characters talk about things other than a man. That's what the Bechdel test is. All right, and we're going to go for another 5. You know the drill by now. I will see you all in a little bit. All right, go ahead and stop. That was that 5-minute timer, 5-minute word sprint, I mean, and welcome back. So I hope you liked that prompt about the Bechdel test. I think that one's always a helpful one to think about when you already have a work in progress. So that's always important. So you have a good female and male representation. So it can be helpful. A lot of times women fall into different tropes that are very, very stereotypical. For example, two women chatting, but only being focused on men and worried about men and what men expect of women or what the woman wants to do for the man. So that's always an interesting prompt and test to keep in your back pocket for your own work and just also for work generally. As you engage with different movies and books and stuff like that, it can be interesting to try out the Bechdel test. So we are running a little bit close to time. We might go a little bit over 3 o'clock today, but I want to make sure to get the last two things in. The first is just a little bit more discussion to break up our word sprints. What challenges and successes did you have during NaNoWriMo? And what are you really excited about? What did you really struggle about? Things like that. So I would love to hear your comments. I already think I've talked about it, my challenges and successes quite a bit when I was sharing my experience, but I would love to hear from you all too. So what experiences did you have? What was really difficult? What was really, yay, big success that we want to celebrate? Tell us all about that. And also, what would you do the same and what would you do differently for NaNoWriMo next year? So thinking about NaNoWriMo for 2021, hopefully maybe we can have some in-person programming for that, get together in person for writing. We'll have to see how things go, but regardless of if it's in person or digital, what would you like to do differently for NaNoWriMo next year? And what do you think worked really well? And what would you like to do that's the same as this year? One thing that I'll mention that I didn't previously, I am definitely going to join into more virtual write-ins like this one and like the ones that NaNoWriMo themselves provides on YouTube. I thought that was really helpful. The NaNoWriMo ones, especially since I wasn't hosting, I got a ton of writing done in some of those virtual write-ins. So I was really happy about that. And so I would definitely want to integrate that more into NaNoWriMo this upcoming year, this next year. So anything that you want to share with us all, feel free to put it in the comments. But that's kind of going to be a short break because I want to make sure we get our last word sprint in for our virtual write-in. And this one is a 10-minute one. So if you'd like to use the prompt, this is the prompt. Write a scene that places your antagonist or unlikable character in a sympathetic light, perhaps a backstory or explanation of their motivations. Now, if your antagonist or unlikable character was also the one that you used for that mindfulness exercise where we got to connect further with them, you are in some luck because you can write for this word sprint about all the things you just learned from them. And make sure you place it in a sympathetic light. So this is really important for our readers to understand, right? To understand motivations and backstories and reasons behind why someone may be an antagonist or unlikable. This makes sure that our characters are very well-rounded and not just flat characters that don't have a lot of personality or development. So that is your prompt if you'd like to use it. Otherwise, feel free to just keep on writing, and we are going to finish up this virtual write-in with a 10-minute word sprint. So we have been building up to the big one. So go ahead and get ready, and I will see you all in 10 minutes. All right, welcome back. And that was our last word sprint. So go ahead and give yourself a round of applause. I know this went a little bit longer than an hour, so great job keeping it up for that full hour. You completed a virtual write-in, and thank you so much for joining us today. So you wrote for a total of 15 minutes with word sprints. No, I'm sorry, 25 minutes. I can do math. So we did those those three that were 5 minutes, and then that final 10. And so you can see that was not a lot of time, but I hope that you felt like you got a lot of good writing in, even in those short periods of time. So congratulations for completing the virtual write-in. I hope you had a great time. I hope you got some insights with our mindfulness techniques and with our discussion as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. As always, feel free to put in your word count or anything else you'd like to share with us today for the discussion questions. And yeah, we are all set. So I hope you enjoyed that virtual write-in. Feel free to give me any feedback in the comments as well. And I will see you next Monday, November 30th. Let me go ahead and stop sharing just because that's a bit distracting. I do like the little fireworks though. So I will see you next Monday, November 30th. That's going to be the last day of NaNoWriMo, and we are going to have Pueblo author Allison Gervais visit us. So I am so excited to hear from her and for us to learn some things from her. And I will see you all then. Until then, have a great last week of NaNoWriMo. I hope I've started you off well with this write-in, and I will see you then. All right, take care and happy writing.